I would like to see them try it and at least extend him.
Yes, sir, there she goes.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Section 138, a Toronto Blue Jays podcast talking all things Blue Jays. I will be your host this week. I am Bryson. I'm, as always, joined alongside Jacob. Jacob, how are you?
Doing a lot better with this Blue Jays team, and there's another Toronto team that I've given up on. I've moved on from, and I'm focusing full time on this team now.
Yeah, I think I kind of jinxed it at the last. I remember saying, hopefully when you're listening to this, they're in the second round. That's not the case, but we will not be talking about them today. They're old news now. Anyways, unfortunately, Mark was unable to join us for today's recording, so we will go as scheduled without him, but he will be back for the end of the next series at the end of the week after the Jays conclude a 3-game series with Houston. So we expect Mark to be back for that one. But anyways, today we're going to be talking about pretty much the recent 2-game series that the Blue Jays were just in. They sweep the Miami Marlins, and then today they are enjoying an off day before they're back in action tomorrow. As I previously mentioned, they're taking on the Astros. We'll get to that in a little bit, but yeah, these past 2 games, Jacob, a little bit of a shorter series, so obviously going to be a little bit less to talk about today, but either way, Jays are coming off probably one of the worst losses of the year, at least one of them, in terms of that fiasco against Cleveland on the Sunday. And then they return to action Tuesday, their very first game in Buffalo, and it goes well. They win 5-1. And then yesterday was obviously the memorable one where they came back. They did a 9th inning rally to walk it off against the Marlins. So Jacob, I guess to ask you right away about your thoughts on the series and pretty much who your favorite or, people that you listed down as key performers from this past series.
You know what? I think overall this was a really good series for pretty much the entire team. Now, Tim Meza, he had 2 appearances both days. He threw a scoreless inning in the first one, and then I think he threw 2/3 of an inning scoreless in the second inning or the second game. He was actually really good. Like I said, they were both scoreless, and he's coming back from quite a few bad outings in a row. I looked at Vladimir Guerrero Jr., 4 for 4 in the first game with 3 RBIs and a home run. Lourdes Gurriel Jr., he actually went 3 for 4 with a home run in the first game. His average after the second game is now 265. That's fantastic, I think, especially considering he was under 200 for quite a while to start the season. Robbie Ray is another one that I'm looking at, actually. A lot of the starting pitchers, a lot of the pitchers in general were good. Ray had 6 innings, 2 walks, 1 earned run, 9 strikeouts. But the key for that one, for me, is the fact that the 1 earned run was not scored off of a home run. And a couple of episodes ago, I said that 60% of his runs were scored on the home run ball. And Sportsnet, I think, on the last start that he had, put out a stat saying that he had allowed 80% of the runs he had allowed were home runs. And so obviously that has gotten worse for him throughout the course of the last couple of weeks. But he looked better in the start against the Marlins. And then in game 2, I thought it was interesting. Randall Grichuk was 2 for 5 with 2 home runs. Alek Manoah did get a little roughed up, but I mean, it's one start. It's his second start in the big leagues. It's, there's going to be some ups and downs, and I'm not too worried about that. The bullpen, though, I thought was good. Joel Payamps and Tim Meza, as I mentioned earlier, Meza was scoreless. Payamps was scoreless as well. Carl Edwards Jr. had a scoreless debut. Overall, I mean, it was pretty good. And then there was that rally in the last inning against the Marlins where Reese McGuire started off with I thought he was going to get pinched hit for, but he didn't. He started off with the leadoff single. Bichette then with his triple. That was fantastic. And it was an up and away pitch too. So that was great. Like he slapped it right down the right field line, and kudos to him. Scored 2 runs. And then obviously Joe Panik came in. He did his job, got a run for the Blue Jays. And it's a fantastic end to it's not the end of the homestand actually, but a fantastic end to this series as they welcome the Houston Asterix to town in a couple days.
Yeah, just realizing right after you brought up Reese McGuire, this is actually just remembered the
man.
first episode. It's just been you and I recording since that whole topic that happened last year. But anyways, if you're unfamiliar with that, if you're just listening before that, you guys should go back and take a look or tune into that one. But yeah, anyways, it was a good series. Obviously, you're coming off of you sweep Miami in a short 2-game series, and just the fact of the matter is, we all know what happened on the Sunday, and the Jays had an off day to, I guess, I don't know, recover from it or look past it, and they now begin their homestand in Buffalo, their very first one of the year. And let me just mention the atmosphere in Buffalo. Wow, it's it's just a lot better it's a lot more relieving, I should say, just to the fact that they're playing in Buffalo with actual supporters rather than pretty much the stadium being filled with visitors or visiting fans. And that's why it's a really cool scene down in Buffalo what they got going on right now. And of course, I'm sure Jacob, you saw too the renovations that they underwent there at Salem Field. Everything looks really good. There's a new clubhouse. Pretty much the bullpens have been moved. There's new grass, a lot of upgrades, and even there's new lighting. So a lot of upgrades, and it's definitely in a lot better shape than it was last year when the Jays spent all of last year there. But either way, thank you again to Buffalo, and I'm sure the Jays are very thankful for a second year now that they're going to be hosting them until the Jays can eventually return home. But either way, going on the first of all, starting with the Tuesday game, I thought right away it was a very good bounce back game from what we saw on Sunday. It was very complete, and it was solid all around. A 5-1 win. Robbie Ray, coming off of I guess a mediocre start against the Yankees, he allowed 4 earned runs in that start, and he goes through that and pretty much bounces back on the Tuesday, going 6 innings, giving up 1 earned run, strikes out 9, and walks 2. So that's a pretty good bounce back outing. And of course, we all know the offense. Jacob, you went over some key performers, and the bullpen held their ground too. So that was a very complete win. And then obviously yesterday was the one, pretty much the highlight for I think a lot of us, and just for all of us. It was very interesting to see, or not even interesting. It was just kind of, in my opinion, I was shocked because I wasn't really expecting this to happen in terms of them coming back. It just felt like the Jays had a few opportunities throughout the game that they couldn't really capitalize on early on, and then it just right at the end they finally came up clutch, and they did it without hitting the home run, which is something that was, I guess, hasn't really been something that's been consistent this year. So we all know what happened pretty much around the 4th inning, or even Randall Grichuk, first of all, in the 2nd and the 4th inning, as I was saying, 2 home runs, and that pretty much got the Jays started. And then they slowly made their way back, and in the 9th inning, it's when it all happened, when Bo Bichette hit a triple, and then Joe Panic pretty much hit a sac fly to win the game. So obviously, right there, for a team that needs to make a push, and we've been saying this all around, they need to make a push. They're in a hard division. I think coming into the series alone on Monday, or sorry, when they had their off day, they're about 6.5 games back. They've already made up 2 of those games. They're now 4.5 games back, and it's just something that needs to be done. If you look back on it now, I don't know if you agree or not, Jacob, but if they lose that game yesterday and split the series with Miami, it just doesn't seem like it was successful at all. Because I know you split the series, and I know all could be there could be a lot of good takeaways, but the fact of the matter is there's been so many games these past 2 weeks that they've let are pretty much that have got out of their hands. We know, going back to even their last homestand back in Dunedin against the Red Sox, there was the one game. There was the game against Tampa when Tampa scored 4 runs in the 9th inning, and then there was the most recent game in Cleveland this past weekend. And there's just been a lot of games that they've thrown away. And the fact is, they come out yesterday, they sweep Miami. Those are 2 crucial games, and it takes a lot away from them in terms of them making a push. Because if you look at it now and they lose that game, they would have been 28 and 26, and they're kind of still sitting at the same spot that they were on the weekend, and nothing really changes. And then of course you have a tough weekend coming up against the Astros. These 2 games right here were crucial, and I'm sure you agree with me on that, and I'll ask you in a sec as well. But even going back to that game yesterday, it's just a lot different than the first game, and it's just really good to see them come back. I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that before we move on.
Well, first of all, I totally agree with you. Going
Yeah.
into this series, Miami was 24 and 28, so they were under 500, and the Blue Jays were 27 and 25. So I mean, a bit of a difference between the two. Neither of them have been overly good, but the Blue Jays, I think they've been better than their 6-game losing streak would say they've been. Obviously, they were 6 games over 500, and you win a couple of those games, it's not a that big of a losing streak, and you could easily be over 30 wins right now. But considering the fact that the Miami Marlins are not as good a team as the Blue Jays, they're under 500 by quite a bit now. These are games you absolutely have to win, and when you have the chance to win, you take it. I mean, Bo Bichette, obviously, like I said earlier, he slapped a triple down the line, scored 2 runs, and then we saw Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Teoscar Hernandez get walked, which set the tone for Joe Panic. And it's just that when you have that type of opportunity, we go back to the Tampa Bay Rays series where they had 5 men on in the final 2 innings of that I think 12-inning game or something, and they didn't capitalize. When you have another opportunity like that, or even when you just have an opportunity like that, you got to score, and they did. And yeah, if they didn't win that game, considering the circumstances, I'd be extremely mad, because you can't keep letting games like this go. You come back. You obviously didn't have a great start from your starter, but when you're able to capitalize on runs, you absolutely have to in a competitive division like the AL East, because it's June now. Like, we're at the point where the standings are going to start to solidify. And you remember in 2017 when the Blue Jays were under 500, I think the entire season, but you kept hearing Jamie Campbell talk about on the broadcast, the Blue Jays were at one point like 3 games below the second wild card spot, but there were 5 or 6 teams that were also like that, and there was pretty much no shot of them making the playoffs. And winning games like this, that gives them a chance. It truly does. And I mean, I say give them a chance as in, or as if the playoffs start tomorrow. But point is they're winning when they need to be. That losing streak, I think, is behind them. And I going into a tough series with the Houston Astros, like regardless of what we want to say about the sign stealing and pretending to bang trash cans, they are a good team. So, like, yeah, the Blue Jays, they need to take these games. Hopefully, win 1 or 2 of 3 from the Astros. I hope 2 or 3. Like, when I say 1 of 3, that's not the goal, but it's a tough team. Like, and we all know it. So going into that series to take 2 of 3 or 2 of 2 actually from a tougher or an easier opponent, that's definitely a good sign, and it's the expectation I think for this team.
Yeah, and that's why going back to what I said about them sweeping this series of how important it was, it's just because of this weekend alone. And I think we've gone over it as well a few weeks ago. Is that their schedule for the first half of June is tough, and then near the end of the month, it's going to cool off a bit. And it's going to get a lot easier. You have Baltimore twice, you have Seattle, and you're going to have a lot of opportunities to make that jump. But the fact is, it was a very important 2 game series because of how difficult the schedule is early on. They have the Astros now coming up. They have the Yankees again, and there's a couple of tough matchups that lie ahead of them. There's no question about that, and they need to make a push. We know where they're sitting right now, currently fourth in the AL East, and led by a lot of offense. Though at least the bats are waking up. I think we've kind of discussed that as well. Lots of guys are staying hot. I think the Jays have about 6 players who have had an OPS over 11 or at least over 1,000 this past week. So a lot of good players heating up. A lot of people adjusting to Buffalo very well. We know Vladimir Guerrero Jr. hit his 17th home run, the very first home run in Buffalo for the year. Randall Grichuk had 2 yesterday, and somebody that also continues to catch my eye, and I've mentioned it, I think the past 2 weeks now, for sure. Last week was Rowdy Tellez. We all know he loves Buffalo, and probably one of the most players that can benefit the most out of this move for someone who's been struggling is him. He's been batting .400 with an OPS of 1,300 this past week alone, and he's got 1 home run and 1 RBI to tally to that. And it's just a lot of these players are still or now at least continuing to heat up, and the offense is there. It's just obviously we know the pitching hasn't exactly been the greatest, and that's where we talk about Alek Manoah in our next topic. We know how it went yesterday, pretty much the first time in a while, and I think it's been quite a bit, maybe over a calendar year, where at least he got a little bit roughed up on the mound. He went 3 1/3 yesterday, 4 hits, 4 earned runs, 3 walks, 5 strikeouts. So while he struck out a lot, or at least a decent number of batters, it was 5. He just didn't have it yesterday, and for someone who's making their second career start, I think his situation to begin with is maybe not exactly in the easiest position. I know he's coming off a successful and solid start against the Yankees, but Jacob, wanted to get your thoughts on his start overall yesterday. And was it something that you kind of expected? Is it something that you're kind of concerned about going forward? Just your overall thoughts about Alek Manoah's start yesterday.
Well, I mean, he did really well against a good Yankee lineup, and he didn't do very well against a weaker Miami Marlins lineup. So I'm not really sure how much I can take out of that. Uh, I, do I think he's staying in the rotation? Yes. I would be shocked, beyond shocked, if the Blue Jays sent him down like they did with Nate Pearson. But I think like I'm not looking too much into it. If he has another bad start, then I think we can say, okay, well, was this truly the right decision? Like, obviously, he's a highly ranked prospect, and he's somebody that we all want to see in the big leagues. But was was May of 2021 the right decision to bring him up, or the right time to bring him up? So yeah, I'm not sure. Like, it wasn't a very good start. Obviously, he had 3 walks, as you mentioned, to go with those 5 strikeouts. So the command was sort of there. It wasn't always there, and with the 4 earned runs, it he got a little roughed up. Like, I think there's no doubt about that. But it's just, I'll give him one more start, and we'll see what happens. Like, when I say one more start, I mean, like, he's probably staying in the rotation for the majority of the season, if not all of it. But yeah, I'm not looking too much into it, and we'll see where it goes from there. I don't know what his next start is or who his next start is off the top of my head, but he'll get another start. He'll get a lot of other starts, and I'm not too concerned about it. Just considering that he is a highly ranked prospect, and he had a 0.5 ERA in the minors this season, very small sample size, but still, obviously he can get guys out. So we'll give him some time. Like the major leagues, I saw people tweeting saying the major leagues is different from the minor leagues, and there's obviously if you make a bad pitch in the minors, you could get away with it, but in the majors, you're not going to get away with it, and that's probably just all that we saw. So I'll give him one more shot, and it's just I'm not too worried. I don't think a lot of fans should be worried either. It's just it's one start, one bad start. We'll see where he can go from there.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not too concerned, and I think we kind of all had the expectation that this was something that was possible and something that was eventually going to happen in terms of him not being the sharpest from his start. But it's just something that we haven't seen from him at all since pretty much making that jump to AAA this year, and then I guess in his first two starts here, it's just something that we haven't seen in quite some time. And he's pretty much touched on it a little bit yesterday, saying how he's been roughed up a lot worse before, but at least before he was in the major leagues, and he didn't seem concerned about it, which is obviously a very good sign. But yeah, I mean, I don't think so. In terms of him or people questioning the call up, I think he's here for the long run. I agree with you on that one. But you know what? It's just it was hard to judge yesterday because a lot of pitches from what I saw in terms of highlighting it is that a lot of pitches he did pretty much were hanging out. He tipped a lot of pitches over the plate. And regardless if that's something that he's just got to clean up, it probably is. But the one thing I've pretty much come to a conclusion for in these two starts, regardless of his performance, is that the tools are there. He's sharp. When he's sharp, he's on, and the potential's there, the talent's there, but the tools are there. Most importantly, he did show signs yesterday where he did pitch really well. He just had that one inning, obviously alone, where he allowed 4 earned runs. He just didn't have it. 3 walks, 5 strikeouts, and the 5 strikeouts was obviously something that I took away from in terms of him having the tools. And that's why, I'm not concerned. I think it's something that he needs to go through. And I think it's something that they will continue to work at. But a lot of this, a lot of this comes with the fact that he just needs a lot of polishing to do still. And regardless if you want to do that in AAA usually or on a regular basis, you usually do it at AAA. I think it's a lot of in terms of that, I think a lot of pitchers do that in AAA. Kind of at the end of their development, you see a lot of these last minute touch ups happen in AAA because AA to AAA is probably the biggest jump in terms of the minor leagues. But in this case, for Alek Manoah, he's going to be making this or these last minute or pretty much polishing his play up in the major leagues. So that's why I'm not concerned at all. But either way, it's just it's tough to, I guess, come out of yesterday in terms of his performance. We know it's just obviously disappointing, but in terms of his next start as well, it seems like it'll be at some point during the White Sox series because obviously this weekend they have Ryu, Matz, and Stripling going this weekend, and then they have an off day again on the Monday, and then that's when they go to Chicago. And Robbie Ray's going to be starting the opener in Chicago, and I'm sure Alek Manoah will get a start by then. But yeah, there's not too much to take away from. I'm not concerned at all. For anyone questioning why he's up in the major leagues, or anyone kind of writing him off already after one bad start, it's obviously a joke if you want to really do that, but he just needs polishing. And I think it's that simple. And I do think that a lot of people notice, as I just touched on, is that the talent is there, which is why this kid remains exciting. And that's why his next start, whenever it'll be, probably in the White Sox series, like I just mentioned, that'll be an even more start that I'm looking forward to. How is he going to bounce back? How much better will he look in terms of his command, in terms of his effectiveness, where he's putting the ball, anything like that? If he's painting it around the strike zone, that's why I'm pretty excited for his next start. But either way, not concerned. And I think we all expected this to happen at some point. And either way, he's still going to be a very good pitcher. So lots to take away and lots to look forward to, regardless of his outing.
Like
Mm.
the thing with him, like I mentioned in the Yankee series review, you cannot get a fastball the way he has it just by working on it. I mean, maybe some guys can really try and develop it and try to get a really good grip on their fastball or something. But Alek Manoah, it's clear that the movement on his fastball just is an indicator that he's a talented pitcher, and you just got to work on that. I mean, he was close to walking the first batter in yesterday's game. I think did walk the first batter in the Yankees start, so just a bit of polishing. It's not the end of the world. This isn't an indication that he's a fluke or that he's not going to be a good pitcher. It's just it's growing pains. I mean, we saw it. Look at Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He was in the first season that he had. He was first of all, pitcher and batter are two very different positions, but still the idea that the talent was there for Vladdy and he wasn't able to capitalize on it. It took him a bit of time. And that's probably all it is. I'm not too worried. It's just, Give him some time. We'll see how he's able to better locate his pitches. I know he sometimes one of the dangers with having a lot of movement on your pitches is that you got to locate them extremely well, or else they're going to come out of the strike zone. So all you got to do is work on that. That's it. And the talent's there. He'll get major league hitters out. And I mean, come on, this guy blew a fastball by Aaron Judge and forced him to fall to his knees. Like, you don't get that by being lucky. Like, he is a fantastic pitcher, and I'm even more excited to see him pitch against the White Sox, because I think he'll rebound, and I think he'll be good. Like, and not to mention, he only threw 3 1/3 innings. Like, that's not a lot. I think now he's up to just over 9 innings. So we'll give him
Yeah.
some time. Yeah. So like we'll give him, I'm assuming, maybe 5 to 6 innings next start, 5 at least, because then he can at least qualify for a win if the Blue Jays are leading at that time. But yeah, it's not a worry for me, and he's here to stay in the rotation. That's at the end of the day, that is, I think, the key. He's not leaving the starting rotation, just considering the Blue Jays need him. And why not? He doesn't have any more developing to do in the minors, so let's just give him the let's just give it to him. Let's see what he can do. Give him the ball, and he's clearly been good so far. So let's just. I don't think we can kind of blow out of proportion his one bad start.
Yeah, not at all. And the one thing too, why I'm not concerned is that he's not concerned. He said it. He seemed fine. And the fact is, he was very into it yesterday during their comeback. He was at the top of the dugout, having a good time. And that's the one thing you need to have in this league, or in terms of that, any professional league. Obviously, it's easy to say for us, but I think it's something that makes sense, is that you need to have a short memory if you want to be successful. So that's why, it happened. And we're going to move on to the next series. And I think, like I said, Chicago is probably where he'll be starting next. Let's see how he bounces back for that. But either way, lots to, I guess, take away from these past 2 days. And something else that happened, and something that we discussed, I think, last week, was that Marcus Semien, the month that he had in May, it finally paid off in terms of the player of the month, as MLB officially announced it yesterday that he was named the AL player of the month. He finishes May with a batting line of 368, 429, 702, an OPS of 1,130. That's insane, with 8 home runs, 22 RBIs, 12 walks, and a 2.3 WAR. And that 2.3 WAR led the league in terms of WAR for that entire month. So, I mean, I know we discussed it last week, but I guess your overall thoughts, or if you were surprised or not that he was named the AL Player of the Month, and what we can expect from Semien, I guess, as we head into June.
Uh, I'm not. I'm not surprised that he won it considering the performance, but if you were to ask me back in April, do you think Marcus Semien would win Player of the Month? I would say absolutely not. Not because he's a bad player, but just it's hard to anticipate a guy batting under 200 literally do a 180 and completely turn himself around. But you know what? He's been fantastic. He's been the probably the best leadoff hitter the Blue Jays have had in a while, even if it is just 1 month. I mean, you mentioned his stats; they were fantastic. Uh, I, I think I said in the last episode, I'm more intrigued to see if he's able to at least stay on par with his numbers, or at least be decent. Like, is a 368 average realistic for an entire season? Probably not, but if he's hitting maybe 275, 280, 290, then I would consider that a successful season. And it's starting to bring up the question, should the Blue Jays re-sign him? Because I keep seeing comments on
Yeah.
our episodes and on my personal account. People are saying, what do we do with Simeon after this season? Do the Blue Jays re-sign him? I believe we did talk about this last episode, so I won't rehash it too much. But basically, this is a 1 year deal, and just Semien, he's setting himself up for one heck of a payday. And you know what? If like, here's the thing: if the Blue Jays do end up going to the playoffs, which I expect them to, if you have a guy like George Springer in your lineup, you have Vladimir Guerrero Jr., you have Marcus Semien, that's a pretty darn dangerous lineup. So like, as long as these guys can keep it up, and Simeon's is one of those guys that I'm looking at, then it's a very very exciting team, I think. And just Simeon, I said this when the Blue Jays brought him on. I think he's bridging the gap from these kind of from this era of Blue Jays baseball to when they bring in Austin Martin or Jordan Groshans, and he's doing a fantastic job, and he's definitely been very exciting to watch.
Absolutely. And to start off the month of June as well, going back to the very first game of the series, he went 2 for 4. I mean, that's a pretty good day anyway, anyone to go 2 for 4. And then yesterday as well, he had another good day at the plate. He finished 1 for 3 with 2 walks. So, it doesn't seem like he's slowing down anytime soon as we head into June. And that's just a key player in terms of this lineup. And we know how much we know the injuries to George Springer. We know how people have to step up, and Semien has been that guy to step up. And I think, yeah, we did discuss it last week, but I don't understand, and we didn't really cover it a whole lot. I remember asking you guys if if the Jays should extend him, and I think so. I mean, I still I think of it now and say, why not offer him extension in the middle of the season? I'm not saying he's going to say yes. Will he say yes? Probably not. He's probably going to want to test the market, but why not try? I don't understand why not try. I know you can give him. I know Mark was mentioning last week or last episode, you can give him a qualifying offer at the end of the year, and then if he walks, you can get a draft pick. You can all do that still. But why not try and extend him in the middle of the year? I don't understand why you don't try. I think it's something that they should. And I see him definitely part of this roster for the next couple of years at least. He's the key member playing second base, and this team, we know they're competitive. I would like to see them try it and at least extend him, and not just let him walk and let him test the market. At least try, and before you handle all that in terms of that. I don't know if you agree or not.
Yeah, I wouldn't be against it. It's like if Simeon's a good player and he's benefiting the team, then obviously that's a good idea. I'm just I don't like I feel like if the Blue Jays are to try and extend him this season or during the season, almost a guarantee he says no. So I'm kind of like of the mindset of why not just wait till the end of the season? I don't like would I like to have him back? Yes, but I think that it's more likely that they keep him or they keep the contract talks till the end of the season, and we'll see what he says. If they give him a qualifying offer, it's who knows, maybe he could take it. I mean, I think it all depends on how he performs throughout the rest of the season because I think there is regression throughout the rest of the season, but that's just because he was MVP candidate level in May. So if he's hitting around 290, something like that, then that's definitely a likely scenario. And you can easily get 18, 19 million dollars from Rogers and pay him. That would definitely not be something that I'm against.
Yeah, and that's all I'm saying is why not try it? But either way, it'll be interesting to see how that happens, I guess, when we get to it. But for the rest of the way, we're still about, I think, a third of the way through the season. We still got lots of baseball left, and yeah, lots of time left for these guys to get healthy in terms of the pitching, in terms of George Springer, because hopefully we can have him back by the end of the month. But before I wrap it up, I believe you had a question for me, Jacob.
I do. I was just about to mention
Yes.
this. So at one thing that I mentioned, and or that I noticed, is I was watching Blue Jays in 30 just before we came on, and obviously I watched the game yesterday, but I was a little excited, so my head wasn't fully in
Yeah,
analyzer
that's fine.
mode. But what I noticed is on that final play where Joe Panic hit a ball to Starling Marte. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure everybody saw it, but Starling Marte dropped the ball, and I mean that quite well, figuratively and literally. Like the ball didn't, it landed on the grass. But one thing that I found interesting is regardless of if he catches that, the Blue Jays are going to win the game because the runner at third was going to tag. I believe it was Guerrero. He was going to tag and he was going to go home regardless. But if you're Don Mattingly, the manager of the Miami Marlins, are you angry at that? And I mean, to you, would you be angry at that? A play where realistically the game is over and catch it, drop it, you're still losing the game. But is that something where you're saying, I don't care. You still catch the ball. Like it kind of similar to me. If you hit something that's for sure going to be just a ground out, you still hustle down the line, and you've seen a lot of guys get in trouble for not hustling. And it's to me when I look at that, I think I know that the wind was bothering people, but the ball was it was literally in Marte's glove, and it came out because it looked like he just didn't. I think he realized the game was over, and he let it drop. But personally, I'd be angry at him. I would, or not angry, but I would talk to him and say, what was going on there? Why did the ball come out of your glove? Like, was it the wind or was it just you knew the game was over? So I don't know. Maybe I'm just kind of blowing this out of proportion, but what do you think? Would you be angry at that, or is that something where you would kind of let it slide just given the circumstances?
Yeah, like it's tough because you obviously don't know if he really meant to drop it or not. But either way, anytime you drop it, I always feel like it's embarrassing no matter who you are, anytime you drop it. But I don't know. And if it seemed like it was kind of like a lackluster effort. So maybe he just didn't like it obviously didn't matter, but he didn't care either. But if I'm Don Mattingly, I probably would be a little upset about that, and just in terms of work ethic, it's just hard to judge off of it. And in terms of Don Mattingly too, and I guess I can counter it as well. Um, you know that inning alone, it's very questionable from him. I mean, I don't know if you. Well, first of all, Bo Bichette, we all know he hits the triple. Jonathan Davis, who's pinch hitting for Reese McGuire after he singles, scores. Marcus Semien scores. And then after that, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is intentionally walked. Teoscar Hernandez is intentionally walked. And he pretty much puts runners on first and second, or even loads the bases since Bo Bichette's at third. And then that's pretty much how the game ends. So, and that's going back to what you said on that play there, because obviously Joe Panik hit a sac fly to Marte. But yeah, I would definitely be disappointed or a little upset if I was Don Mattingly. But it's just hard to say if you really meant to do it or not, because we know the effort didn't seem like it was all there. But anytime you drop it, it's embarrassing. So that's why I would be obviously disappointed as well. But either way, too, and I can counter that for you is, what are your thoughts on how Don Mattingly approached that ninth inning in terms of intentionally walking Guerrero and Hernandez, both of them, to load the bases. He loaded the bases, and that's why I was just wondering on, how that was handled, because a lot of people were also wondering or questioning why that exactly, or Mattingly did that. We understand. I think we all knew that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was going to walk, but in terms of walking Hernandez as well, did you agree with that, or did you see that coming?
You know what? I actually, now that I look at it, I'm glad that you asked that because I pulled it up. Guerrero in that game yesterday was 1 for 4 with it doesn't say what he had, but he was 1 for 4. So he had a hit and one at bat. Teoscar Hernandez was 0 for 4. And I know that Teoscar's he's hitting 300 now after that 0 but I don't know why you necessarily would intentionally walk him in order to get Randall Grichuk, who was 2 for 5, because Joe Panik was the second guy. Randall Grichuk hit a fielder's choice where they got the runner at home, but I don't really agree with that because like you're obviously Guerrero was going to get walked even if he's having a 1 for 4 day. He's still hitting 335 and he's an MVP candidate. But Teoscar Hernandez, yes, he's been very good, but he's also had a bad game in terms of the numbers. I mean, 3 strikeouts. I don't know necessarily why you would not consider pitching to him and try to pitch to Randall Grichuk because who was it? I think it was it was either the Angels or the Phillies that did it to the Blue Jays a couple weeks ago or earlier on in May, and Randall Grichuk was up and then he hit a walk-off single. So I don't really know why you would intentionally walk a guy that has struggled in order to face a guy that wasn't struggling and in fact took you deep twice in the game. So you know what, I'm glad you asked that because I think that was a dumb move, honestly. Like even if Teoscar Hernandez is one of your better hitters, if he's not having a good game, I think you pitch to him and you try to get him out because 3 strikeouts. Like obviously, there's no guarantee he's going to strike out again, but if you can get a strikeout, entire inning is different because then that play with Randall Grichuk could end the inning and then you go to extras. So yeah, I think is a questionable move. Like I understand why you want to intentionally walk a good hitter, but if he doesn't have it that day, you try and pitch to him because obviously it was also raining too. Like we've always seen the rain, the weather, it makes baseball so much more different. And some guys don't have it, but also the ball, the way it moves, the way the bat is wet, like it adds a whole level of complexity. And so if you're Don Mattingly, I don't know why you're intentionally walking one of the better hitters or one of the better hitters that is struggling to face an even better or face an on par hitter who's had an even better day. So yeah, I completely disagree with that actually.
Yeah, and going back to what I said is I expected the Guerrero walk, but yeah, once Teoscar Hernandez was walked, it was a little interesting. And I know that Randall Grichuk did pretty much ground into a force out at home for a double play, so nothing happened. But then Joe Panik, we know the rest from there. So very interesting to see how that all transpired. The ninth inning, especially, was memorable for the Blue Jays. So they come back, complete the sweep over the Marlins, and now they have another off day today before they're back in action tomorrow as they start a 3-game series in Buffalo against the Houston Asterix. So it'll be a very exciting series, tough series ahead. And from there, I think we'll wrap it up. I know today was a little bit of a shorter episode, but hopefully, too, by the end of the weekend, Mark is back. As always, you can rate and review our podcast on Apple Podcasts. Sorry, I'm a little new to this. And of course, you can watch us on YouTube. You can support our Patreon on patreon.com. The description, I believe, is below in the description that we post. So either way, thanks for listening, and we will catch you the next time.